on the floor. Thank you, SEC. How does he do this? Just always uses the laptop. No. No. Just give me a second. Maybe earlier I could have used it, but now it's fine. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janarandana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Shri Shri Radha Kalajanji ki jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together, please. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him, and I beg for service life after life after life. Okay, today, welcome to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are going to be studying, we're in Canto 5, Chapter 6. We're going to read, I kind of want to, although time is a factor, but I want to read the chapter summary just so that we have an overview of what's going to happen in the following classes, and then we'll go through verses 1 through 5, and then we'll focus in on verse 3. So we'll just start off with the chapter summary. Whoever wants to begin reading, this is the title. You can read that too.
The activities of Lord Rishabhadev. This chapter tells how Lord Rishabhadev left his body. He was not attached to his body even when it was being burned up in a forest fire. When the seeds of fruitive activity is burned by the fire of knowledge, the spiritual properties and mystic powers are automatically manifest. Yet, Bhakti Yoga is not affected by these mystic powers. An ordinary yogi is captivated by mystic powers and his progress checked. Therefore, a perfect yogi does not welcome them. Because the mind is restless and undependable, it must remain always under control. Even the mind of the advanced yogi Subhadari created such a disturbance that he lost his yogic mystic powers. Due to the restless mind, even a very advanced yogi can fall down. The mind is so restless that it induces even a perfect yogi to be controlled by the senses. Therefore, Lord Rishabhadev, for the instruction of all yogis, showed the process of quitting the body. While traveling in South India through the province of Karanata, Konka, Vinayaka, and Kutaka, Lord Rishabhadev arrived in the neighborhood of Kutakalachala. Suddenly, there was a forest fire that burned the forest and Lord Rishabhadev's body to ashes. The pastime of Lord Rishabhadev as a liberated soul were known by the kings of Konka, Vinka, and Kutaka. This king's name was Arhat. He later became captivated by the illusionary energy, and in this condition he set forth the basic principles of Jainism. Jainism, yes. Lord Rishabhadev set forth the principles of religion that can free one from material bondage, and he put it into all kinds of atheistic activities. On this earth, the place known as Bharat Varsha was a very pious land because the Supreme Lord appeared there when he wanted to incarnate.
Lord Rishabhadev neglected all the mystic powers for which the so-called yogis hanker. Because of the beauty of devotional service, devotees are not at all interested in so-called mystic power. The master of all yogic power, Lord Shri Krishna, can exhibit all powers on behalf of his devotee. Excuse me. Devotional service is more valuable than yogic mystic powers. Devotees who are sometimes misled aspire for liberation and mystic powers. The Supreme Lord also gives these devotees whatever they desire, but they cannot attain the most important function of devotional service. Devotional service to the Lord is guaranteed for those who do not desire liberation and mystic power.
Jai. This is making it very clear. Mystic power. It comes to devotees, like regular old devotees like us in this room. You get Brahman initiation, you've been chanting Hare Krishna for many years, and you start to be able to, I've heard, I don't have these qualities, but you can kind of pick up on people's thoughts maybe, or, little things like this, it starts to manifest. And if we get distracted by those, it's going to throw our devotion off course. So we need to be firmly situated. All I want is service. All I want is devotional service to Krishna. I do not want to be distracted by anything. Okay, we'll read through 1 through 5. Go ahead.
King Parikshit asked Shukadev Goswami, "My dear Lord, for those who are completely pure in heart, knowledge is attained by the practice of bhakti yoga, and attachment for fruitive activity is completely burned to ashes. For such people, the powers of mystic yoga automatically arise. They do not cause distress. Why then did Rishabhadev neglect them?"
Text 2. Srila Shukadev Goswami replied, "My dear king, you have spoken correctly. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action."
Text 3. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Subari Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection.
An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramours, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by these paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi.
Last verse.
The mind is the root cause of lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fire. Combined, this constitute bondage to fruitive activity. What learned man would put faith in the mind?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. We will go ahead and focus on text 3. Tata choktam. I don't know what that means. Na kuryat karhichit sakyam. Na kuryat karhichit sakyam. Manasi hyana vashtite. Manasi hyana vashtite. Yad vishram bach chirach chirnam. Yad Vishrambachchirachchirnam Chashkanda Tapa Aishwaram Chashkanda Tapa Aishwaram Tata Choktam Na Kuryat Karhichit Sakyam Manasi Hyanavashtite Yad Vishrambachchirachchirnam Chashkanda Tapa Ishwaram. Please chant. Tata Choktam Na Kuryat Karhichit Sakyam Manasi Hyanavashtite Yad Vishrambachchirachchiram Chashkanda Tapaishwaram Tata Choktam Na Kuryat Karichit Sakyam Manasi Hyanavashtite Yad Vishrambachchirachchinam Chashkanda Tapaishwaram Tata Choktam Na Kuryat Karichit Sakyam Manasi Hyanavashtite Yad Vishrambachchirachchirnam Chashkanda Tapaishwaram. All right, we will read the synonyms together. Tata, so, cha, and, uktam, it is said, na, never, kuryat, should do, karhichit, at any time or with anyone, sakyam, friendship, manasi, in the mind, he, certainly, anavashtite, which is very restless, yet, in which, vishrambat, from placing too much faith, chirat, for a long time, chirnam, practiced, chashkanda, became disturbed, tapa, the austerity, aishwaram, of great saintly Lord Shiva and the great sage Sobari. Okay. Translation. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. It's okay. Maybe we can read it together. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Sobari Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection. What's the story of Sobari Muni? I think I remember, but I'm not sure. The fish one. Does someone want to tell it in the mic? Here, Mother Kunti, wait for the mic.
Devotee, he offended a devotee. Garuda. That's right. Because one fish was trying to take shelter of Shobari. And so he cursed Garuda, blameless Garuda. And so that's what led to his fall down. He was meditating underwater. And then he by chance saw two fish copulating. And it totally captivated his mind.
Yeah, he got very disturbed and he decided, okay, I'm going to give up my meditation. I'm going to get out of this water. I'm going to go find some lovely brides to enjoy with for the next however long. And yeah, that's a whole story that we hear about in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, and then Lord Shiva. So this Lord Shiva kind of has an excuse. I mean, it was Krishna in Mohini Murti form, but it was his attraction to her form and the desire to enjoy her that like just drove him mad. That's also described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's quite a funny scene when it's described. He's chasing her and Okay, let's read the purport. The first business of one trying to advance in spiritual life is to control the mind and senses. As Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam sho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashastan indriyani prakriti stani karshati. Although the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and they are therefore in a transcendental position, they are still suffering in this material world and struggling for existence due to the mind and the senses. To get out of this false struggle for existence and become happy in the material world, one has to control the mind and senses and be detached from material conditions. Basically, to be happy in the material world, you have to stop trying to be happy in the material world. One should never neglect austerities and penances. One should always perform them. Lord Rishabhadev personally showed us how to do this. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 9:19-17, it is specifically stated, Matra swashra duhitra va na vivikta santno bhavet Pallavanindriya gramo vedvasam api karshati. A grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, and brahmachari should be very careful when associating with women. For men, woman is woman. For woman, man is woman. So keep that in mind. One is forbidden to sit down in a solitary place, even with one's mother, sister, or daughter. It's quite an extreme statement. We'll talk about that a little bit. In our Krishna consciousness movement, it has been very difficult to disassociate ourselves from women in our society, especially in Western countries. We are therefore sometimes criticized, but nonetheless, we are trying to give everyone a chance to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and thus advance spiritually. Yeah, we see in other cultures and other societies that the separation between men and women is more natural and just part of the culture that we see. But in America, it's like the opposite. It's almost like offensive to even consider that men and women should be separated. If we stick to the principle of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra offenselessly, then by the grace of Srila Haridas Thakur, who is the Namacharya, we may be saved from the allurement of women, or the opposite gender, or the gender we're attracted to, or sex desire. However, if we are not very strict in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we may at any time fall victim to sex desire. Okay, yeah, so this is a very powerful purport, and this is not what the entire class is going to be about, but I know Prabhupada Priya has trained me in such a way that if we read something that's out there, hard to understand, or throws us off, we need to talk about it and not just look past it. So yeah, this strong language about women has been explained in this way, that the culture Srila Prabhupada came from, this is just, you spoke to the men. These were the people that were reading the books mostly and doing the studying of scriptures, the people that were really, taking advantage of these things because they had the education to do so. But in the West, we have to explain these things a little bit more. Yeah, it's hard to hear sometimes that, like, whenever the word woman is used, it's referring to usually sex desire in general, but this is just the culture that these shastras have been given to us from, and we need to adapt it to our modern day culture. And then also this statement of shouldn't be alone. Where is it? One should not even be alone with his mother or sister or these things like family members if they're of the gender that they're attracted to, because this is the mind is just, we hear there's like a common saying, intrusive thoughts. The mind just has intrusive thoughts all the time, thoughts that we do not even cultivate in our daily life. It has nothing to do with what we meditate on or what we engage in our regular life, but all of a sudden I have this intrusive thought of something, horrific. Where did that come from? It comes from lifetimes and lifetimes of being in this material world and being conditioned, things that we don't remember, that we've experienced in previous lives. And sometimes these intrusive thoughts get the best of people, and they act on them. They find some allurement in that intrusive thought. They think, oh, maybe I'll get pleasure this way. And that could be through so many ghastly things. And so this is the meaning of today's class, and this is what we're going to talk about in today's class, is that the mind is so unsteady, so fickle, untrustworthy. We should not put our faith there. I want to say we can learn to cultivate the mind, treat the mind as a child, and gradually raise this child to behave in the way that it's supposed to. But that is a process, and we'll get into this process. So, well, I guess I'll go ahead and get into the process, which is devotional service. The primary method of controlling the mind is the 9 processes of devotional service, the 2 most important being hearing and chanting. The mind is difficult to control because our nature as souls in this material world is that we want to experience some happiness, some pleasure. And so we kind of work backwards in this material world as conditioned souls. We're supposed to be led by the soul, and the intelligence listens to the soul, and the mind listens to the intelligence, and the senses engage in what the mind says that they should do for the service of the soul, for the service of Krishna. But we work backwards because we left Krishna and we're trying to enjoy some other ways. So now we're conditioned to the senses run the show. We see a picture of this in Bhagavad Gita. We smell something that smells nice, we want to enjoy it. We see someone who's beautiful, we want to enjoy them for ourselves. So the senses are running the show. And then the mind's duty, the mind's job, what it does, its function, is to just accept and reject. So the mind being controlled by the senses rather than by the soul starts to say, oh, I want to enjoy that, or I don't want to enjoy that, or I want to enjoy that, and I don't want to enjoy that. We consider ourselves to be the center. And we're conditioned like this for so long. And our intelligence, once our mind says, I want that, and this is how it's working backward. My mind says, I want to enjoy that. Okay, that's a yes, right? My mind said yes to something. So then my intelligence engages in the service of my mind, trying to figure out various ways that we can come to have this thing and enjoy it for ourselves. Meanwhile, the soul is just asleep. And super soul is watching us, go through all of these things, just waiting. Patiently, very patiently waiting as we taste the fruits, the different fruits of the tree of this material world, a sour fruit and a sweet fruit, but they're all temporary. So we can never be satisfied. Even when we do find some sweet fruit, maybe a happy marriage or a nice child, this marriage, someday our partners will not be around, or we will have to ultimately, even if everything in our life is wonderful on a material level, we'll have to leave through death. And so everything is temporary. We cannot enjoy anything in this material world eternally. And so we need to train ourselves to flip that script. Instead of being governed by the senses, and then the senses control the mind, and the mind controls the intelligence like that, we're waking up our soul. Jeev Jago, Gaura Chandra Bole, by chanting the holy names of the Lord, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed, and as Srila Prabhupada very mercifully brought to the West. Through this chanting, we can wake up the soul. And when this soul starts to wake up, we start to get these instructions, and we start to be able to hear, especially, like I was saying before, hearing from devotees. This object of devotional service helps us to deeply control the mind. Because when we hear from devotees, then our intelligence is purified. our soul is awakened. We hear from devotees that the highest bliss is to serve Krishna, or the highest bliss is to dance in kirtan, or the highest bliss is to take prasadam with devotees. We hear this from the Vaishnavas. And so it awakens a desire within our heart. Whereas from before, our desires were based on the senses, the material senses in this material world. Now, as we're starting to awaken, our desires become spiritual. Oh, that does sound nice. Our intelligence is becoming purified. We're thinking, maybe that actually would work. How would that work? How can I actually access the spiritual bliss that these saintly Vaishnavas are referring to? Our intelligence is trying to think like this and asking questions from the Vaishnavas to figure this out. And the response that we get is that, okay, I'll find happiness by engaging in devotional service. Okay, the mind says, okay, yes, I'll say yes to that. And I'll say no to the things that the saintly persons say are going to take me away from that happiness, like meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex. So in this way, the mind is engaged in its proper duty of accepting and rejecting under the purified intelligence rather than under the senses. So now we're accepting and rejecting things based on Shastra, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And then once we accept, okay, I'll be happy if I engaged in pure devotional service, my mind has accepted this, now my senses act accordingly. Now my senses are under control of the soul and everything is in alignment. So this is like the process, for engaging the mind properly. But even still, we shouldn't put faith into the mind, even if we've gotten to the point where, okay, my intelligence has been purified much more than it used to be, and now I'm accepting and rejecting things based on devotional service. This is such a wonderful change I'm seeing in myself. Wow, I really trust my mind now. You know what? I think that I have such a strong connection to Super Soul that I don't even need to ask anymore. I don't even need to ask questions. And I can probably just do whatever I want because I've been purified to the point where my mind is Super Soul, and whatever it tells me is gonna bring. No, if we start thinking like this, we're gonna end up like Jed Bharat. We're gonna leave the association of devotees. We're gonna get attached to something. We're gonna fall down, have to take birth again in an animal form of life. This is what happens if we put faith in the mind. So we need to cultivate the mind. We want to. This verse does say that one should not make friends with the mind. Perhaps we should not make friends with the mind, but we should induce the mind to, make friends with us. Try to, serve like this. Because we hear also in various places that we should try to make the mind into a friend. So this is one of those statements that can go either way. Well, the main point is that we should not put our faith in the mind. We should put our faith in the devotees of Krishna, in Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Let's see. So then, like I was saying, we have to understand what true enjoyment is. Devotional service, having a relationship with Krishna. And once we understand what true enjoyment is versus false enjoyment, then we can start to disconnect from false enjoyment. It's not possible for us to just say, neti neti, not this, not this, not this. I'm not going to enjoy this, I'm not going to enjoy this, I'm not going to enjoy this. I'm just going to be like a stone. And this is impersonalism and voidism, what Srila Prabhupada came to save us from. These ideas that we are just going to be able to detach ourselves from everything. Voidism is such a scary concept to me. Let's take a moment to consider this thing that people are saying. It's so completely empty. Nothingness. This is what they're finding peace in. It's so sad. It's spiritual suicide. Srila Prabhupada uses that language, that very strong language, for a very good reason. People who don't want to live in this world anymore take their lives because it's so painful to be in this world of material existence with temporary things that just don't give true happiness, at least they realize that they can't find happiness in this material world whatsoever. But the solution is not to nullify our existence. And even if we try, and even if somehow we successfully convince ourselves that there's nothing, and within nothing there's peace, and we leave our body in that state of mind, and we attain the Brahmajyoti, which is just the energy of the Lord, we don't stay there. Because the soul is meant to enjoy relationships with Krishna. It's not meant to be detached from everything. And so eventually the soul has to come back to this place of suffering to try to figure out the right way to find happiness. And so we can't, my point here is that we can't just detach the mind from things. We have to have something to attach the mind to. I'm wondering, I do have a verse to share on this, but I'm wondering if you guys want to share some examples of how we can detach from material enjoyment or selfish endeavors by replacing that attachment with something spiritual. Mother Kunti.
Since sex desire is so prominent and so blatantly encouraged, what I have personally found is dressing the deities.
Wow.
Touching the body of the deity completely satisfies that urge.
Wow.
And praying, of course, to the spiritual master. Also meditating on the eyebrows of the Lord. That is another. That's one positive aspect of devotional service.
Hi, thank you. Yeah.
I have a sweet tooth, and I have taken shelter of Mother Padma's brownies.
Yes, as opposed to store-bought brownies with God knows what kind of consciousness in them. Anyone else want to share anything? I was thinking music, like I have the desire to enjoy, nice music and fun songs and dance. And so one way is through kirtan. We can enjoy through kirtan. Another way is there's so many people that are devotees that are making nice songs that are catchy and in English, words that I know, with beats that I can, vibe to, so I can enjoy music that way. Another way, which doesn't work all the time, but another way is that taking songs that maybe you liked that are more in the mode of goodness and figuring out how to make the lyrics about Krishna. I like to do that sometimes with love songs. You can easily make love songs about Krishna. There's many ways to attach the mind to something that's good for us. And when we do that, what is it? We develop the higher taste. So naturally, when I'm eating Mother Padma's brownies, I'm not even considering those Publix brownies or whatever, wherever we get brownies from. I'm not even thinking about them. These brownies are like brown gold. Or when I'm enjoying lyrics that move my soul, I'm not even, there's no desire in me to enjoy lyrics that degrade my consciousness. And so we develop a higher taste. There's one of my favorite verses ever that I've ever heard. I just wanted to share because these are the things that we can attach our mind to. Srila Raghunath Das why did I say Thakur? I meant to say Goswami. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in I know that I'm saying, why did I write it? Yeah. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in his poem Shri Mana Shiksha, the very first verse is him begging his mind to become attached to certain things. I'm gonna sing the Sanskrit because it's just so beautiful. And then the translation has been given by Her Grace Urmila Devi Dasi. She has a beautiful book with compilations of different devotees in our movement, giving explanations on each verse, and the bhajans by Bhaktivinoda Thakur about each verse. It's just absolutely beautiful book and absolutely beautiful poem. The Sanskrit goes like this. Guru Goste Gostalai Susujane Busuragane Swamantre Shri Namni Vrajanavayuvadvanda Sharane Sadatam Hitva Kururatima Purvam Atitaram Aye Swantar Bratas Chaturbirabhya Chetritapada. So beautiful. There's a recording of there's a woman who sings these verses, and then a man reads the translation after each verse, and it's just such a beautiful recording. Oh dear brother, oh mind, having given up all pride, please develop unprecedented and excessive attachment to Sri Guru, to Sri Vrindavan, the abode of cows, to the devotee residents of Vrindavan, to all the devotees on this planet, to the confidential mantra given by Sri Guru, to the holy names of Sri Sri Radha Krishna, and to the process of surrendering to the fresh, youthful couple of Vraja. Holding your feet, I beseech you with sweet words. This poem is very, very beautiful and very, very interesting, because as Srila Raghunath Das Goswami continues throughout the verses, he becomes a little more strong with his mind. One verse he begins, "Oh ruffian mind, why do you burn yourself and me, the soul, by bathing in the trickling urine of the donkey of hypocrisy and duplicity?" He's like he's getting a little irritated with the mind. And then towards the end, he brings it back, and he's feeling more peaceful because he's really meditating on service to the divine couple. But he starts really humbly and submissively, holding your feet, dear mind, please, I'm begging you. This is the approach that Nityananda Prabhu took when preaching with who was he preaching with? Haridas Thakur? Okay, yeah, when preaching with Haridas Thakur, this is the approach that Nityananda Prabhu took when they would ask people to chant the holy name. They would fall at their feet and beg them to chant the holy name. So maybe we can begin trying to take this approach with our mind. If that doesn't work, we might have to get a little more intense. We can meditate on mana shiksha. This means, mana means mind, shiksha means instruction. So these are instructions to the mind given to us by Raghunath Das Goswami. Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually says that this compilation of verses, this mana shiksha, is the step-by-step process for devotees. We should all understand these verses and meditate upon them deeply. And I'm over time. I wanted to share a little bit more, just one quick last point, because Haridas Thakur was mentioned in the purport and also just again brought up. We can take great instruction from Haridas Thakur. He was a great saint. He would chant thousands of rounds in front of Tulsi Devi, just sitting there. And one day, the king or the emperor or something, he was envious of Haridas Thakur. And so he sent a prostitute to try to tempt Haridas Thakur. This prostitute was actually Maya Devi herself personified. Can you imagine? Maya is so attractive already. Now, if she comes in a condensed human form in front of you, in the form of a woman who's trying to just give herself to you, and you're sitting there chanting, I don't know what kind of chants many people would have. But Haridas Thakur, she came, she said, "Please, I want to enjoy with you, please satisfy me." Haridas Thakur said, "Okay, you sit there. I'm going to finish chanting and I'll get to you later. So this is how we can engage with the mind. He said, I'll get to you later. And he finished his chanting. Well, he kept chanting throughout the night. Eventually, the prostitute had to leave. She said, okay, I'll come back. I'll come back tomorrow. He said, okay, come back tomorrow. I will surely satisfy all of your desires. So the prostitute left and came back the next day. He said, okay, I've started my rounds for today. I still need to finish my rounds for today. Sit there. I promise you, I will satisfy all of your desires. So the prostitute sits and she's just hearing Haridas Thakur chanting. And in this way, days pass and she becomes so purified. She admits to him, I was sent here to tempt you and I feel very bad about that. And now I want to become your disciple. So she actually takes initiation, I suppose, some type of initiation from Haridas Thakur, and she ends up shaving her head and taking white. And there's this very famous picture here. People often think that this picture is of, where's the full picture? Oh, here we go. No, it's Haridas Thakur. Yeah. No, the one sitting here, what I've been told, is the prostitute. So, yeah. Exactly. But it's just a lot of times people see this image and they think that the one chanting there is Haridas Thakur, the one chanting in front of Tulsi Devi. But actually that is the ex-prostitute, now pure devotee, Maya personified, and Haridas Thakur is there walking away from the scene, having fulfilled all her desires as he promised. And so we communicate with our mind in the same way. Just rest there for a moment while I chant. I promise I'll get to you soon and I will fulfill all of your desires. Krishna will fulfill all of your desires. So we tell ourselves like this, and eventually he does, only our desires have been purified and they're very different than what they used to be. Okay, so sorry for going over time. Any thoughts or comments on this? Yes, Mother Tammy.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a very nice class. In the beginning, when you were reading the verse, I really appreciated how you updated the verse to the 21st century in the Western world by replacing the word women with other synonyms. And so I wanted to say my experience when 20 years ago, when I first started going to the temple, having grown up in the Western world and being, in the 70s when women's liberation was big, I was very insulted by the fact that the women and the men were separated. I thought that was that was saying that the women were lower class. And then someone explained it to me that the women are actually, it's because the women are titillating and distractive, and the men have trouble focusing on the what's being done in the session. So then I realized it was a compliment and not an insult. And so since then, I've always appreciated it and looked at it differently. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, women are, very beautiful. I think most women also agree that women are more beautiful than men. most people will agree. This is true. Like, there's distraction there. There's also distraction for women when, too close to men. It's just butter and fire. So like both sides. Yeah,
we have such a propensity in the Western world to take things like that personally and to think that it's, saying women are lower class. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
It was a wonderful class. Thank you very much. So 2 points. You spoke about Haridas Thakur, and I just remembered His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj in Journey Home, while he was in search of the absolute truth, right? He was going through Afghanistan, and there was this lady who was like undressed, laid over him, and she was kind of forcing him with her bodyguard standing next to him, to have union with her. So I was just thinking, in that situation, for any common man, you know, look, Krishna,
What can I do?
what can I do? Uh, but he didn't give any excuse. Radhana Swami,
This was before he was Radhanath Swami.
In his
This
book,
was on
Journey
his way
Home.
to India.
Yeah, journey home. So I just remembered how difficult it is, to resist that temptation. And the second point, you spoke about the mind, nature of the mind. So I remembered one wonderful statement made by one devotee. He said, the nature of the mind is to always focus on something that we don't have.
Mm.
We fail to focus on what Krishna has given us, what we have.
Mhm.
Always hankering for something that I don't have. And that's what actually, through our mind, Maya Devi makes us miserable.
Mhm. Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prema.
You were supposed to be up here today.
Thank you for a nice class. I have a basic question. So like how this verse says, don't trust the mind. So when we have thoughts, and some thoughts are Krishna conscious and some aren't, is there a way for us to tell this is coming from the mind, this is the intelligence, this is the false ego, this is the soul? Can we parse all our thoughts and is it possible, or should we not worry, or what?
Well, I think there's two levels to one level that I would answer to my answer. Someone else would probably give a much better answer, but what I'm thinking, on one level, yes, we have checks and balances system of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, so we can always test our thoughts compared to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and inquire from devotees. That's like go to answer for questions like this. Of course, another thing is sincerity. Deep down, we usually know if we're just making excuses for our sense gratification, or if we actually have some, inclination towards a service, or, deep down we know our intention behind things. And so when we have thoughts that might be questionable, then we really have to examine our intentions, and only through deep sincerity will that work, and also only through deep sincerity will we be able to take advantage of the statements of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Because if I have my mind is presenting these ideas to me, and I think, oh yeah, that is spiritual, and my Guru says, I don't know about that, maybe that's going to be a distraction, but I don't have the sincerity to realize that, then maybe I'll say, no, Gurudev, no. I swear it's not as, so yeah, sincerity, and then Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. But if anyone else has any thoughts, that could be cool. No? Yes.
I was told once that if your thoughts bring light and clarity, then they come from God, and if they cause agitation, then they don't. That's a measure I always use.
Yeah, that's a decent measure for sure. I would say sometimes we can trick ourselves into thinking that a thought can feel like it's bringing light and clarity, but it's not ultimately good for us. Like, I'm just thinking of like a simple example of like a girl wants to get married, and there's this boy, and she feels like, maybe he's a devotee, and she feels like, oh, this is Krishna's arrangement, this is like, wonderful, and she feels like it's light and clarity. But then if she asks her Gurudev for blessings, maybe he has some reservations, and so we still need to ask. Like, we can't just say, oh, that feels like light and clarity, I'm gonna follow it, because that could still be wrong. Because especially in this example, but it can be applicable to many things. In this example, rose-tinted goggles, we can overlook people's red flags, or we can just convince ourselves that someone is perfect, like this. So we can convince ourselves that things are light and love and clarity, and then Guru can do what Guru does and just like cut through that. So yeah. We definitely should listen to that part of ourselves also and hear what that part of ourselves is trying to tell us. Like the part that experiences light and clarity from something, maybe it's experiencing light and clarity from an aspect of that thing, but the full thing itself is not what we need. Does that make sense? So like we can follow our heart, but through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. That's thought. Okay. If any like urgent, because I don't know if anyone wants to correct me, that would be wonderful. But if not, I guess. Okay.
If I understand your question correctly, it's how do we know what's coming from the mind intelligence? I'm sorry, but it's just through purification, right?
Mhm.
Like really at first we're just so, we don't even know our own desires are our own desires. For instance, we get an education, we become this career, and 10 years later we find out, wait a minute, I didn't want to do this. It was my parents' desire. Right? So we're just so wrapped up in not understanding who we are in the soul. That the only really way is through purification, and it super soul.
Mhm.
Krishna really starts to show us clearly what's coming from what.
That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've had this experience sometimes, is that through the process you do get little glimpses of, oh, that's my mind, and you're like, oh, mind, you're being a rascal, you're being like that. I know that's not me. I know that's not my desire. I know that, and I can see it. And then we just continue to have these experiences where we get more clear. Like I can, right when it hits, right when I hear that voice, I can hear it. That's my mind, or I can hear, yeah, that's my.
Explain it a little further. So in certain things, certain. Some of us have, very inquisitive mind, right? So then you want to know where to cap it off, So like how much? So like let's say you get a pen that's very complicated and works. It's got these springs and stuff, right? So you look at the pen and you're like, okay, how does this work? And then you have to open it up,
Mhm.
And in the process of opening it up, many times you'll break the pen, and if you won't be able to put it back. But then once you've done it, at least that, okay, I would be able to fix this pen or not, or at least next time I do it, I'll pay more attention to where the screws came out, whether it's like, so if your mind is like that, so this was quite like, no problem opening up. But with certain other things also, which could get you in trouble, but you're very curious about, like, okay, what happens after this? So where do you cap your inquisitive nature? Is where I was going with that. Like, okay, this is my mind, which is, how much should I risk?
Again, I think it just goes back to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. You have to talk to your Guru. You have to say, Guru Dev, do you think that I should look into these things? And if they tell you, maybe that's not for you right now, or like, this is where I have to ask these questions a lot too. I'm like, can I? No, you can't, not yet. So that's my experience. Like when we have an inquisitive mind like that, our gurus will let us know where to stop, and then we just have to have some self-control and trust them.
It's a really, really like to explore this more. I was thinking too, though, is we have to educate ourselves in tests sometimes too. I really appreciate the point of Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. Then there's some things even in there that we're not clear about how we're doing, But for instance, we could buy a car, and we have to educate ourselves of what we need from that car, so we don't end up buying a sports car when we need a minivan. So we can also see through testing, making mistakes and stuff like that, and through our purification, and we, so education, I would say, and through learning through the mistakes, we really get to start to see, like, oh, I thought I could use that computer in Krishna service, but then I started getting on YouTube and watching videos. Okay, can I handle making a shift to use the computer for the proper purpose without jumping on YouTube for hours. So I really appreciate this point because it's interesting because missed it. Anyways, I won't go there. Hare Krishna.
She. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, right. Or it's Shiksha Guru. Shiksha Gurus are so powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gauda Premanande Haribo Vansha Kalpatsarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.